Time for the only radio show of its kind. Auctioneers of antiques, collectors of cool, veterans of vintage. It's the Donley Auctions Hour on AM 560, The Answer. For the next hour, enjoy great information about buying and selling antiques and collectibles, and some interesting stories. Now, the Donley Auctions Hour.
Welcome to the Donley Auctions Hour. Thank you for joining us. We're here every Saturday from 1 to 2 o'clock on AM 560. I'm Susan. I'm here with Randy Donley, and we are the owners of Donley Auctions in Union, Illinois. We're just 60 miles west of Chicago, folks. Come on out and see us. And we want to talk to you today about items that you might have in your home that are of value that you might want to put up for auction. We also want to tell you about a fantastic auction we had last weekend, the camera auction, and give you a little bit of input on how well some of these items sold to see, again, if you have any of these in your garage or attic. Hi, Randy. Good morning.
Hey, Susan.
Welcome back from Florida.
Can you hear me? I'm not, I don't feel like I'm even on the air. Can you hear me okay? Good.
Yep, we can hear you just
welcome,
fine.
ladies and gentlemen, as Susan said, to the Donley Auctions Hour. And yes, it was really quite an auction, wasn't it?
It was fantastic, wasn't it? It was the camera auction from the International Photography Hall of Fame in St. Louis, and that's the one that we held off-site in Arlington Heights last Saturday.
And when you have good merchandise, you have good
people come
auctions.
from all over.
Yes,
we had people flying in from Ohio. Did you meet them? They were so nice, and they stayed all day long. It was great.
Yeah, you know, that's one of the fun things that we always look forward to with our auctions is meeting our customers. Even though we do so much, online, when people do come to the auctions, it's always so much fun to find out what people collect.
Well, what I noticed is that only one customer that came was one of our regular customers. Everybody else were brand new customers.
Well, and true to form, I mean, that's because this was somewhat of a brand new subject matter for us. I mean, we've sold cameras before.
Yeah, onesies and twosies.
And but when you sell
We've been together a long
1,000
time,
cameras
folks.
in one auction, you are going to meet camera collectors.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So we had 600 lots. Every single item sold. That is the first time that's ever happened at Donley Auctions. So let's keep that trend going, okay?
You got it.
Everything's sold, and I would say 80%, 90% of the items are being shipped.
Yes.
And I would say half of those are leaving the country.
Yes. Yeah, we've been in Arlington Heights all week doing shipping. It's a madhouse. It's got to go fast
shipping
now.
is crazy. So for those of you who did buy at the auction, you need to give us a few weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, but you can still pick it up in Arlington Heights, too, while we're still there. So I'm going to give a couple of highlights because, again, if anyone, people have been calling saying, is it too late to get in the auction? Yes, it was too late to get in the camera auction last week because, in fairness to our listeners, we need a month, really, to photograph it, describe it, lot it, display it, and promote it.
Sure.
So we don't do anything really at the last minute. We need to close the auction about a week or two in advance. So those of you who did call us with cameras, this is the type of stuff we're looking for. We want to let you know how these items sold. I'm surprised at the prices. They went very well. For example, remember we talked about that big Bertha Graflex camera sold for $1,500.
Nice.
This is just the hammer price, so it does not include the buyer premium. $1,500 for that. We've been talking about my favorite camera in the auction, the Mega Lethoscope. It's about a 50-pound camera that definitely needs to be picked up or transported. Can't really throw that in a box. That one sold for $2,100. And the Mahogany 35-millimeter motion picture company camera, it's a Bausch & Lomb camera, 1903 patent date, sold for $3,750.
$3,750, not
$3,750. Right. Yes, that's correct. And again, the other cameras that had a lot of action on it were the NASA Minolta cameras, $3,750. $3,750. And that lens, the Pinkham & Smith lens, $2,800. Now we're getting up to the two highest price items that sold in the auction. Coming up at number 2 was the stereoscopic wet plate camera by John Stock. Mahogany body with a pair of brass lenses. Beautiful, beautiful piece, patented at 1863. $8,500.
Nice. Okay.
I know.
Good,
yes,
good.
And the owner, he was the new owner was very excited and has called us multiple times about picking that up and hand carrying it home. I think he's driving in. Last one. Okay, number one. The highest price item at the camera auction was the rare spirograph disc motion picture projector by Urban Motion Pictures Industries, New York, 1921. A hand-cranked mechanism, black enameled metal case and a nickel-plated fittings. Beautiful piece. $12,000, folks.
And that blew way past reserve, didn't it?
It blew way past all of our expectations on that.
And I used the word reserve incorrectly because there were no reserves.
I was going to correct you, but you corrected yourself.
It blew way past the pre-auction estimate. There were no reserves. So, of course, everything sells when there's no reserves on items, and that's really the way to have an auction.
Yeah, but a lot of the more common stuff we sold in bulk, like 10 or 20 of those Leica cameras. And
oh, no, not Leicas.
Not Leicas. Sorry.
Just Kodak, like Bantams
Kodak
and
is
stuff
what I meant.
like that. Yeah.
Those, sold for what we would expect. And everything, every single lot sold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Leicas did very well. I mean, they were selling in the thousands.
Yeah, they did.
Where they should have. I mean, good cameras bring good money.
So the point of telling you all of this is, do you have any? Do you have any at home? Give us a call at 815-923-7000. Tell us about your cameras, because I think if we have anything really good like that, it'll go in November.
It would. And we're always looking for complete collections. Like this was a collection from a museum, and museums out there, a lot of folks out there today are probably working at museums or even own your own private museum. We sell complete collections, and we're constantly liquidating for museums. Folks, museums can't continue to store everything. The cost of storage and that is just phenomenal. So museums do sell off their duplicates and their items in storage because it keeps coming in.
Right.
Museum items keep coming into the museum, and they keep refining their collection, keeping the best of the best and selling off, residual. They cannot afford to continue to store it.
So what do they need to do? Let me tell you. You're a museum out there. You know anyone who has a full collection. Somebody needs to downsize. They're moving. Give us a call at 815-923-7000. Better yet, email us at consign, CONSIGN, at DonleyAuctions.com. Send us your information and some photographs. Everybody's listening to what we're telling them to do. We're getting a ton of emails, folks. Keep them coming, and we will definitely give you next steps.
And I want to point out, too, that we do go all across the United States, of course, last week.
Yeah, we'd even go to Hawaii if there's a collection out there.
Oh, you would in a
I'll go to that
heartbeat,
one. Yeah.
But last week I was in Florida and got home just in time for the auction, actually.
Yeah.
And then had to run out the same night. Right after the auction, I had to shoot out to St. Louis.
Just head on down 6 hours after the auction and come back the next day.
Yeah. So
Randy likes to drive, in other words.
Or fly.
Fly.
So let's keep those calls coming regardless of where you're at. Don't say, too bad they're not closer. Doesn't matter. We'll come and get it.
Well, one of the pickups you did in Florida was a military collection. I'm sure we can talk about that now because we're going to talk about that in the next segment.
Yeah.
A little bit more about what you guys discovered. So I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, quite a large collection. I was actually down there picking up a huge antique music collection. But as we've told you before, when I landed in Tampa to pick up this music collection, I looked at my phone and I'm just checking messages. So I returned a call to a gentleman who said, I'm in Florida. And I said, well, too bad you weren't closer to where I'm going. And when I told him, he said, well, actually, I'll be 15 minutes from you
of course.
As you're cruising along the expressway. I just couldn't believe it. So timing is everything. And we ended up picking up a large World War II German military collection
Right.
that is going to be coming up in our December auction.
That's right. December, I got to get the date on that. I think it's the third week in December, right before Christmas. So check your calendar on that. We are still taking consignments for our December firearms, ammunition, and military memorabilia collection. Try to say that fast. Give us a call at 815-923-7000 if you have anything to consign to that auction. But coming up in our next segment, don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about bicycles.
Oh, is that in the next segment?
It's such a great topic. It can go all over the board, but check and see if you got a bicycle. We're going to tell you what is and is not valuable in our upcoming segment here. And we're going to talk about the September auction coming up next. It's September 23rd and 24th with one of our military experts. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Donley Auctions Hour right here on AM 560. The Answer.
They've been called auctioneers of antiques, collectors of cool, even veterans of vintage. And they can introduce themselves. Thanks for listening. This is the Donley Auctions Hour on AM 560. The Answer.
Welcome back to the Donley Auctions Hour. I'm Susan. I'm the co-owner of Donley Auctions, here with Randy Donley. We are the owners of Donley Auctions in Union, Illinois. We're just 60 miles west of Chicago out in the beautiful country. I had mentioned in the first segment, Randy, that we're going to talk about bicycles, but that was just a teaser. We're going to talk about it, I don't know, maybe next. But first, I want to touch base on our September firearms and military auction, September 23rd and 24th, since that's coming up next week.
Well, I do want to point out, yes, folks, we will be talking about bicycles today.
Just what they've always wanted to hear.
Later in the show. And, you know, I love our promo where it says collectors of cool.
Yeah.
You know, isn't this stuff cool?
It's very cool.
You know, folks, everything that...
Veterans of vintage.
Everything that you collect out there, this stuff really is cool. I have so much fun seeing what you collect and what you surprise us with every week. It's just so much fun, this business, because, you know, our audience, you folks are our business. And you're the ones that have collected all this stuff up. And again, it's so much fun to see what you've collected and the history behind it. Some of the provenance is phenomenal.
Right. That's the most important thing, too. And I know in some of our advertising, we would say, and cool stuff.
Yeah.
So we got to be a little more creative on that. But we love our cool stuff. So let's talk about September.
September, yeah. And what's the dates on that, Susan?
September 23rd, firearms, ammunition, gun accessories.
So that's, you know, less than 10 days away. So get on our website and look at this auction.
Ooh, can I tell them about the new website? Let me tell you about that. If you go to DonleyAuctions.com, Donley Auctions now has our very own online bidding platform. That's what you're going to see when you click on the button for day one or day two. Day two is military. So if you have any questions about how that works, give us a call. We're excited to announce that because it's going to save you money if you bid directly through our site versus going to other online bidding platforms. But I wanted to also mention, I know I've been saying this for weeks, I'm very excited about all of the Colt snake guns that are coming up in this auction. It's September 23rd. Just wait.
You just love saying snake guns.
I do like to say
and
that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to keep telling everybody they're not for shooting snakes.
No,
Susan
I think they know that.
Yeah, I don't. Well, if I tell them enough.
Anacondas and pythons.
It's the titles of the guns, you know, Colt pythons, Colt anaconda, you know, and so on. But snake guns, commonly referred to, are very collectible, very expensive, very hard to get, and we have a bunch of them in this auction.
And a bunch of different, like nickel and stainless steel, all of the different ones.
Absolutely,
they're beautifully
different sized barrels and everything. So anything you could want in a python, we have in this auction. Absolutely an amazing collection.
It was one person's collection.
It was.
Isn't that amazing? And they're pristine in boxes, and he kept them no dust. Absolutely no dust on any of this stuff. So check DonleyAuctions.com if you want to check out all of those guns. Also, do you want to talk about the rifles that we have?
Well, you know, we've got such a wide variety of guns in this auction. I mean,
specifically the Rough Rider one.
Well, we'll talk about the Rough Rider gun in just a minute. The Craig that actually was at,
Yeah. We'll tell them about
San
that
Juan
too.
Hill. But at any rate, wide variety. We've got hunting guns. We've got military guns. We've got, just anything and everything.
22s, semi-automatic pistols, revolvers, black powder guns.
I mean, just everything in this auction. A nice wide variety. But most importantly, sometimes you get looking at an auction and everything is so expensive, so out of touch, so out of range. Here we put together an auction for you that has a great wide variety of prices. You'll be able to buy a shooter or a plinker probably as cheap as $50. And of course, our guns will go up into the mid to high thousands. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I had a caller this week, brand new bidder, did not know how it worked with transferring his gun to an FFL. And I said, where are you located? He's in Rockford. I said, we carry our own FFL. So I recommend you come out to the auction, bid with us live, save that online bidding fee, fill out your 4473 paperwork, wait the 72-hour waiting period, and then come back and pick up your gun from us. Well, he's like, that's easy. I can do that.
And, Susan, you touched on this, which is so important for our listeners out there, especially if you're consigning, is that if you're consigning with us, you're 100% assured of being in compliant with all local, state, and federal laws. Right. Everything you'll be doing is 100% legal. We give you a copy of our FFL, which is Federal Firearms License paperwork, so that you have that in your hands and you can prove 100% you've complied with all the laws and you're doing this legally. That's one thing so many people are afraid to sell guns because they don't know the laws, and the laws are changing so rapidly. We're staying on top of all the laws for you, and we can help you. We can sell your guns for you legally. And what do we always say, Susan?
We'll make it fit in your wallet. And on this particular auction, we are now on 4 bidding platforms, which is a first. So talk about thousands and thousands of eyes on the auction. We have thousands of bidders looking at your consignments.
Yeah, if you've got guns to sell,
it's a lot of competition, and that's how the prices increase, by everybody wanting to outbid each other. That's for sure. So I told the guy, I said, all you need to do is come out to our auction in Union, show us your driver's license and your FOID card. We'll give you a wristband, and you can handle the firearms. Then we have people on the floor who will answer any questions, and then you can actually look at the items you want to bid on. And
the FOID card here in Illinois is the owner's identification. Okay.
That's right.
So I think it's only required in Illinois.
If you don't have one, get one.
But Susan, we have David with us today, correct?
David's on the line.
Hey, David Hill works with Donley Auctions and works with us in our military relics. So, David, are you here with us?
I certainly am.
Hi, David.
Great. David, Susan was teasing the audience just a minute ago about the Rough Rider gun, which, of course, is a Craig Jorgensen. And what do you know about that?
Well, if you want to go back historically, the United States decided to go with a foreign company, a Norwegian company, to have all their men armed around the Spanish-American War. And this is a cavalry carbine. And the consignor says he thought it was one that the Rough Riders used. And we did our research. Our gun guy did his research and found out that it's definitely in the sole number range of one that was used by the Rough Riders. So it's a pretty historical gun, and it's in very nice condition.
Now, what we know about it, though, correct me, David, is we know that there were 2,000 Craigs given to the Rough Riders, but we do know that there were 1,065 of these troops that actually made it to Cuba with Roosevelt. So it's a gun in the serial number range of these 2,000 guns, but there were only 1,000 men using them there. So we can only prove it fits in that 2,000. We can't prove beyond that it actually charged up the hill with Teddy Roosevelt.
Correct. Right. I mean, it's in the serial number range, but for collectors, that's still just a monumental range to have the weapon be in.
It doesn't get any better if you collect Spanish-American War or Craig rifles or anything. I mean, this is the gun that you certainly want in your collection. Very rare, very historic.
That's right. So I want to make sure if you want to take a look at the description of it, go to our website at donleyauctions.com. In the search field, search for Rough Riders. I don't have the lot number handy with me. But you know what else is great about this item? It comes with a vintage box of Winchester Army full patch. So we've got a box with it as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. That does help with the value of it, that's for sure. So, David, tell us some other great items coming up September 24th. We got about 50 seconds.
Sure. There's a number of really interesting World War II posters done by artists that were struggling during the 30s, and then when the war started, they were all, recruited to do training posters and recruitment posters and patriotic posters, and some of them are just really fantastic. That came from a collection out of Pennsylvania. And that's something really nice. And there's just a wide range of items that if you're just dabbling in anything from the Vietnam War to the Civil War, that there is something for everybody.
Thank you, David. We appreciate that information. Go to DonleyAuctions.com for more information. Like I said earlier, we're going to be talking about vintage and antique bicycles. So don't go anywhere, folks. Stay tuned to the Donley Auctions Hour right here on AM 560. The Answer. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Donley Auctions Hour on AM 560. The Answer.
Welcome back to the Donley Auctions Hour. Thanks for hanging with us during that break. We have David on the line with us, our military expert. And David and Randy are going to talk about some interesting military relics that came in.
You know, Susan, yes, I was in Florida and I picked up this very rare collection of German World War II daggers. And as David's going through it, he's identifying these daggers, and he said, well, wait a minute, Randy, this one's a repro, this one's a repro, and, oh, this is good, and everything. And I'll let David talk about this in a minute, but the fact was, David said, well, it has the original scabbard, the original handle, but the cross guard has been, replaced with fake and everything. And I found this so interesting that if there's replacement parts, if there's some fake parts on a German dagger, it's considered a parts dagger or a replica. But boy, oh boy, if you're restoring a car, okay, let's see. It's a ground-up restoration. All new paint, all new rubber, new top, new interior. Oh, I dropped the 427 in it. It wasn't the original engine, yada, yada, yada. You go through all this, and then the car is still valued at $100,000, and it's called restored. It's not considered a parts car. Right. As long as the serial number on the engine, or trans matches the title, oh my God, you've got something rare there. So I don't get it. So at any rate, David, talk to me about these daggers. I mean, most of them are still going to have great value because the basic parts, a lot of the parts are still genuine. Correct. Right. There's a whole bunch of collectors, and I'm included, that I save spare parts thinking someday I'm going to find the rest of that dagger to put that part on. And so, and really when you reassemble original parts, it's not even considered restored, it's considered original. And so there's still a very vibrant market. It's just unfortunate that after World War II, daggers went through people's hands. Sometimes things broke off of them, and the interest in it just kept growing and growing. That sometimes they would make reproduction parts to put on them. So you got to be careful with that. One thing, Randy, I want to appreciate what you did is that you didn't just rely on me, but you actually got outside experts to come in and review this, and out of your own pocket to make sure that what you had was what's going to be described, and I do appreciate that. Well, and thank you, because I think that's what we really strive for at Donley Auctions. I mean, we keep using the word integrity. When I went to school to become an auctioneer, one of the first things I ever wrote down on my legal pad was the word integrity, because they kept stressing, if you're going to have a successful company, that's what it's going to take in the auction world. So it is important for us, certainly not that you're not one of the best military experts when it comes to German relics. I mean, but we felt that with these particular pieces, a specific dagger expert would also be beneficial. And yes, we brought him in to add to your expertise.
Well, and I deeply appreciate that. I think the consignors appreciate that. The bidders appreciate that because then they can bid it with confidence.
Sure. So at any rate, what else do we have coming up that's really of interest in this September auction?
There's a number of groupings of medals from World War II and Vietnam. Some sad ones of the killed in action groupings. Very historic and interesting. There was, one little thing that we found that was humorous was that we had a German hat come in from a family, and we're inspecting it, and we found in the liner of the hat a ticket in Holland to go to a dance recital, a music recital in Holland that was stuck inside the visor of the hat and inside the sweatband, and nobody had known it until
I love it.
Found it in there. Yeah,
that is so neat.
You never know what you're going to find in a sock drawer.
That's right, or in the sweatband of your hat.
You're right. Exactly.
I want to point something out too about collecting in general. We keep saying that young people aren't collecting; they're not collecting, and I try to point out, well, they're not collecting grandpa's antiques. They're not collecting what their parents or their grandparents collected. I was just thinking, I've been a military collector since I started collecting military in 1965. Well, the war was only over 20 years, 1945. So I was collecting stuff 20 years old. That would be like somebody today collecting something from 2003. Would you ever think that's old or collectible?
I know.
So the people that are collecting today, they're just collecting differently. So all these relics that we're selling, don't necessarily appeal to the new collector.
That's right. And that's going to lead into our next segment when we talk about antique versus vintage bicycles, too. David, thanks for joining us. Get back to work. We'll see you back at the auction hall. I also want to do a shout out that we will be at the Wheaton Civil War Show September 23rd. It's one of Zerko's productions.
Bob Zerko runs the best shows.
Oh, my gosh, the best show. Google the Wheaton Civil War Show and look for the Donley Auction booth. We will be there.
And taking consignments
and
there,
taking
too.
Consignments. Yeah, why not? Bring out what you have. Show it to Mike Donley. He'll be there and can answer your questions about future consignments for our December auction. And don't go anywhere. I can't wait to hear about the bicycles. So stick with us. You're listening to the Donley Auctions Hour right here on AM 560. The Answer.
And now, more of the Donley Auctions Hour on AM 560. The Answer.
We are back with the Donley Auctions Hour. Susan and Randy Donley from Donley Auctions in Union, Illinois. We're just 60 miles west of Chicago. And we have a fantastic auction coming up in November. It's our annual Fall Classic. It was 3 days, and now I understand it's going to be 4 days.
Well, that's because we're adding 1 day of coins and jewelry.
Wow.
We've got some very high-end, expensive jewelry that's coming up along with our coins.
So we're still taking consignments for it. It's never too late. Call us at 815-923-7000 or email us at consign@donleyauctions.com. The auction is going to be 4 days, November 16th through the 19th, Thursday through Sunday. Mark your calendars.
Got it. And, you had mentioned earlier that we're going to talk about bicycles and that. And I do want to touch on bicycles because in one of our last shows, I had mentioned I wanted a high wheel bike for our upcoming November auction.
Yes.
And sure as heck, one walked in the door. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And I had also mentioned Playboy. Playboy items, having started right here in Chicago.
Yep.
What kind of great Playboy memorabilia. So we're going to talk about that, too. Some really interesting Playboy pieces.
Oh, that's a good teaser. I don't think anybody's going to change the channel now. Stick with us. But let's talk about bicycles real quick because one of my bucket list items is learning how to ride a high wheel bicycle. We've had a couple in the past, and I would get up on it. Just could never get it going. So I watched a video on how to ride one of those big wheels. You know what I'm talking about. I know
do.
you do. I hope everybody else can visualize what a high...
That's always the problem with radio is trying to visualize. But the high wheels had a giant front wheel that some of them were as high as 5 foot in the air. 5 feet.
Right.
So you'd literally be sitting on top of this bicycle 5 foot in the air. You would have to actually run along the side of the bike. And at one point when you've got this balanced fast enough, you jump up onto the seat.
Well, I tried that. It's not quite how it worked. But these were popular in the 1870s and 1880s. And then they became obsolete in the late 1880s when they came up with a better modern form of a bicycle.
But you know, Susan, what's really interesting to me in researching bicycles is the very first, for lack of better words, pedal-driven wheeled vehicle took place all the way back in the 1400s, like 1418. And then by 1790s, it was a two-wheel vehicle that you would just literally roll down a hill with no pedals and everything and try to balance on wheels.
Can't imagine. Well, what they needed was an alternate form of transportation from horses because the horses were dying of starvation and they needed another form of transportation. So that's how that all came about.
It's absolutely incredible. So the high wheel bikes, as we know them, actually, and they were called what? Penny farthings.
Penny farthing.
Yep.
So I watched the video. Let me just tell you real quick on how to ride one.
Please.
And I'll make it real quick. You get behind it, not along the side of it. Get behind it and push it like a scooter.
Yeah.
And then hop up over the top once you get your feet on the pedals. And then you go to hop off. You put one foot on the back pedal and climb off the back. The guy made it look so easy. So someone bring me in a high wheeler. I got to try it.
Well, here's the danger of that. And almost everybody who's ever ridden one, like myself,
I'm sure you
incidentally, is the center of balance is really awkward. So the first thing you want to do to try to get speed is push on the pedal, which is directly connected with the wheel. So as you push, you're actually pushing yourself forward. And the back end of the bike flips right over the wheel, and you end up on the ground.
This is what happened to you. Okay, that's how not to ride a high wheeler.
Oh, my gosh. But honestly, too many people do. But right now, there's so many clubs and groups that still do cross-country tours with these bikes. It's really amazing to see. And, of course, we've all seen high-wheel bikes in parades and everything, but they can be dangerous.
And they're valuable, too, but let's talk about what's even more valuable today in the bicycle industry.
Well, yeah.
Work your way up from there because...
Well, absolutely.
Collectors'
but first, I just want to remind everyone, if you have a high-wheel bike in your basement or garage or anything, we need it for the auction. But again, going forward, I mean, there's so much collectible in bicycles. I mean, what most people are familiar with would be the classic 1950s bikes, you know.
Schwinn's.
Pee Wee Herman style bikes and everything. And then, of course, it went to the Stingrays.
Are all those still valuable today, the 1950s?
Very, very collectible,
okay,
50s,
good.
60s. But what surprises me, Susan, is the big money, you know, in mountain bikes.
Mountain bikes is the thing to sell.
You know, mountain bikes are just absolutely...
Well, it's becoming a very popular sport for people, too. And I do know, like, I hate to say, like, during COVID, everybody was buying bikes because they wanted to be outdoors and get some activity in. So a lot of those were selling well back then.
Well, the thing that I want to point out is what I said in the last segment. When I started collecting military relics, they were only 20 years old.
I know.
So that's the case today. If you're collecting mountain bikes, I mean, realistically, you're collecting things that, you know, are only, 20 years old. And
I remember I bought a 10-speed bicycle in like the late 70s. It was $76 from Ace Hardware. Are bikes like that still valuable? Real quick.
Well, certain models.
Certain
Absolutely.
models are. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, give us a call at 815-923-7000. If you have any form of transportation with two wheels, we would love to talk to you about it.
Or
four wheels, motorcycles,
cars. Motorcycles, you name it.
We love it. We want to consign some great items for our auction in November. Give us a call at 815-923-7000. You can email us at consign@donleyauctions.com. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Donley Auctions Hour right here on AM 560, The Answer.
The Donley Auctions Hour continues now on AM 560, The Answer.
Welcome back to the Donley Auctions Hour. I'm Susan, co-owner of Donley Auctions, here with Randy Donley. We just got done talking about antique and vintage bicycles. That's a great subject. If you have one, again, give us a call at 815-923-7000. We will give you next steps.
But, I wanted to touch on this, Susan, because...
Circle back on that, Randy.
I wanted to touch on Playboy.
Yeah.
Iconic business here, founded by Hugh Hefner in the city of Chicago. And everybody is familiar with the Playboy's rise to fame in the mid-50s, actually, 50s, 60s, 70s, is when it was most popular. But so I asked for items in one of our last shows, and what walks in the door?
What do you know?
A gentleman says, years ago in Chicago at the local church, Hugh Hefner's mother brought in a bunch of Hugh Hefner's suits and shirts.
His mother? I didn't hear that part of the story.
Yeah, that's what he said, or a relative. I thought he said mother. Could have been a relative of some kind. But Hugh Hefner's items show up at the church bazaar. So he ends up buying 6 of Hugh Hefner's suits for $5 a piece back in the day.
Wow.
And there's photos of him wearing these suits.
That double-breasted one is in a photo. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, with Barbie Benton. That was his one-time girlfriend. And or she was quite a while with him for quite a while. But also his shirts, monogrammed shirts, white shirts, all monogrammed. And all these have, his name in them, and the tailors, big-time custom shirt tailors and all this. But he bought all these shirts, and he bought them for a nickel a piece at the church bazaar. And so...
Are they monogrammed?
They are.
They are monogrammed.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's HMH on their if memory serves.
Oh, so wonderful.
So at any rate, he bought them so cheap that he wore them to work, and he had a greasy, dirty job and wore white shirts to work. And rather than cleaning them, he had bought them so cheap, he just would get them dirty and throw them away. So he still had like 5 or 6 of these shirts and a couple of the suits, and he's brought them in for our upcoming Playboy auction.
Oh, you're talking about the owner, not Hugh Hefner.
No, not Hugh Hefner.
I was going to say, when was he never
the person who now owns them that actually bought them at the church bazaar.
So, we do have other Playboy items in an erotica auction we're going to be holding probably early next year. What else is in there?
Oh, well, we've got so much of the original Playboy cartoon art. The artists that worked for Hugh Hefner.
It's going to be a fun auction.
Still retained ownership of the original artwork. So we're going to be selling off all that original art.
Let's see if anybody has a bunny outfit out there. Bunny costume. We would love to add that to an auction if you have
we definitely would. We don't have a bunny costume yet. So if you were a former bunny and would like to make it fit in your wallet.
That's right. Give us a call.
We can sell any Playboy items for you at the upcoming Donley Auctions.
That's right. We have many auctions coming up. Check our website at donleyauctions.com to see the dates of upcoming auctions. Like I said, September, guns and military. October, art and general antiques. November, our annual fall classic. December, we'll do another firearms and military auction. So if you have any questions, give us a call at 815-923-7000. We are still taking consignments, whether it's one item or an entire collection. We'll make it fit in your wallet. Listen to us next week on AM 560, The Answer. For now, I'm Susan.
And I'm Randy Donley. And we'll see you at the auction.
Thanks for listening to the Donley Auctions Hour on AM 560, The Answer. Check out all the latest information on upcoming auctions and collectibles at DonleyAuctions.com. And while you're there, you can contact someone about buying or selling your collectibles or estates. That's DonleyAuctions.com.